So, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Capturing the game within the game. I'm your host, Brady Desmond, and I'm joined by my co-host, Desmond Jones. Today, we have a special episode for you guys, as Desmond and I are going to break down and discuss everything that has happened so far within the men and women's NCAA March Madness. So, to just get things off, we're just going to start with the question of how is your bracket doing, Desmond? How have you been parring up today for the bracket?
My bracket is in shambles. My bracket blew up in flames when Illinois took a massive L to Loyola the other day. And going into the tournament, I knew that that upset was either, I mean, that pick was either going to make Illinois or break Illinois. And apparently it broke Illinois. Peter Mosley had the team ready to go, and they came out played really tough defense on Illinois. And hats off to them. And I wish them best of luck for the rest of the tournament. But it's just been so many upsets on the men's side that it's hard for anybody bracket to withstand upsets like it. You got Iowa losing now. You got Illinois is losing out, like I mentioned. You got Texas in the first round losing to in the first round. 3-14 matchup right there. You got West Virginia just losing to Syracuse the other day. It's just so many just different um losses that just hurt. Even looking at the Purdue North Texas loss, like what do you do with your bracket? It's in shambles. Mine's in shambles. I don't know what to do. What about yours?
Mine, I only made one, and it was not pretty. I knew going into it, I knew I wasn't gonna do well because of, with the pandemic and everything happening and everything not being a normal March Madness year. That even the madness of March just kind of brings it out even more. I think I had one of mine. I know Michigan's still in, and I had Michigan winning my bracket, but just the first couple of games, first day, I wasn't not ready for any of those upsets. And plus, I don't think anyone else was. No one was ready for it.
Yeah, I'm looking reviewing my bracket right now. There's a couple of ones that I picked that I'm like, yeah, I did a good job picking. And there's some that I just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make out of. Like I had USLA, making the playing game to come in to beat BYU in the upset and to turn around to beat um out whoever. I had them playing Texas in the second round. Texas didn't make it to the second round. And I definitely had like UCLA all the way into the Sweet 16. So like some picks I've been spot on. Other picks like my Illinois pick wasn't wasn't as good. So we'll get through it. Just another March. I did feel as though that this year is gonna be different. There's gonna be a lot of upset just because a lot of teams play within a conference. A lot of teams maybe didn't play as many games as other people did. I felt like this year the more veteran teams that has been around for a while or have played together for a while, we're going to do better than most of the other teams that maybe have those top tier talents that are just one and done and ready to go to the NBA.
Yeah, that's very true. That's I guess it's kind of how it's been, and just even looking at it, that's what when you go back and look at the season, all these teams that have been there, you see a bunch of these Power Five conference teams that have had games postponed, games rescheduled, they had to play a couple games within 3 4 days, and then you got these smaller schools that their season's just rolling on as normal. With all that even with all that said, so basically, what are your thoughts with um, how the tournament shaped out and with the general location of being in Indiana and having it all within the area of Indy? How do you think that has played in the factor with all these other teams without the travel?
I think it's been beneficial, without having to travel with all of it being, centralized in one location. It sucks. I think we had only one game that's been canceled due to COVID, and I think it was that I think it was a game that Oregon had, so they had like a first round bye essentially.
Yeah.
So um I mean, and that's the goal of the whole tournament. You know, you do all these things and you set up all these precautions just to make sure that you create an opportunity where everyone is safe and everyone can participate and compete on a equal playing field. And so we have one game canceled so far, and then hopefully that'll be the only game that get canceled. Things will go um things will continue to play out.
Do you think with this generalized location, do you think if it does well this year, do you think in future tournaments that the NCAA is going to decide they want to just choose one set location, whether it be Indy or a big city and state, to keep it there, or do you think they're going to go back to how they had it before with different spots across the country?
I think they'll go to the different spots throughout the country just because the fact that they want the money and they want that revenue. I think it's good for it to be centralized because I think it creates a better buzz and it creates a better opportunity uh, for just everyone. With having to eliminate travel, you maybe have better competitions, and you don't have to worry about athletes um traveling or and withstanding the ups and downs where it comes with traveling. So I think it makes a better playing field, but they'll probably stick to doing everything split across because the fact of the revenue. Now, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. No, you're good. No, I think I kind of thought thinking the same way, but I kind of like the idea of it all being centralized because you don't have to worry about travel. You can keep all the athletes there. I know one of the bigger stories I was looking at is all these Big Ten teams within this tournament. I was seeing throughout the season, every single Big Ten team they had probably all 14 of them have one of the hardest schedules just because the Big Ten is such a powerhouse basketball program. And I was seeing they're all four or five of them ranked in the top 25 throughout the whole year. But looking at the tournament, there's only one team remaining right now is Michigan, and every other Big Ten team has just unfortunately has lost within the first couple of rounds. So what are your thoughts on the Big Ten teams doing so well throughout the season, but then come tournament time, they're not showing up.
I think that's the nature of March Madness. You
Yeah,
never
yeah,
you never know what to expect out of it. You have all these teams that are performing, or we have these rankings that we believe that they're XYZ team on paper, but sometimes they just don't show up and play their best basketball. At the same time, maybe we just put too much value on the Big Ten. I can't really think off the top of my head right now, and but when I think of pure talent, I think Illinois is probably the most talented team uh in that in that division, but with the most top tier, NBA talent. But other than that, I don't know any other schools that has those ranking prospects, in the Big Ten that or has those ready to go players. And I don't. I say all that to say that I think with men's college basketball, with all these mid majors and all these different programs, I think with everything being so accessible with technology and all these videos and all these trainings and people playing basketball year round and just the different coaching methods is out there. I think the college game is starting to become more competitive and more of a playing field because you're starting to see less and less more of the North Carolinas, the Duke, the Kentuckies, like all your big powerhouse programs that made up college basketball to you know what it is today. You're starting to see all these mid-major schools and all these other smaller school programs even out the playing field or just changing the way basketball is being played.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And you did mention with the Duke, North Carolina, there's a couple teams that just are in the tournament this year, and it's been a while that um, I think since like the '70s, since they've been in it, which is a huge shock to I think most people. But I think with Corona hitting and everything like that, it kind of limited the fact of some of these games and some of the talent that was there because some people maybe opted out of playing their this college season just because of wanting to stay home or health reasons and other things like that. So I think that also plays a huge factor into it. And I mean, March Madness, the madness part of it is definitely hitting. And it's making it
Oh
interesting,
yeah.
giving more buzz to them, and um, I think it's drawing more people in now. The more and more it goes on after the first couple of days.
Yeah. So what? So I know you had Michigan winning it all, right?
Yeah.
What outside you being a big Michigan fan, what made you pick them to win it all?
I know a couple of the players are pretty well. I know they got Wagner and a couple other returning players that have been doing well. I was watching a couple of the games in the tournament, and can't think of his name right now. I think it's there's a couple of them that usually are starting on the bench, but they've been popping off for a couple of points and rebounds. That I think it's Mike Evans. I think that's what his name might be, unless I'm
Hmm.
thinking of someone different. But that I just after going to a game last year, I just think that they performed pretty well in the tournament. And a couple of years ago, I know Jordan Poole hit that game-winning three when they were playing Texas Tech a couple of years ago, and I think um, that Michigan, I think they excel a little bit better in the tournament, little crunch time games rather than mid-season, where they're already good this year. And I think Juwan Howard is coaching a great basketball team this year, and he knows what he's doing. And been following them all year. They did a 2 week break they had because I think someone within their coaching staff or players had corona, so that put them back. So they weren't able to practice or do anything, but they came out and put up a couple of great games without even having the ability to practice. So I think um, that gave them a little bit of an edge for me when picking them to win the tournament.
Do you think that Howard is the coach that they expected him to be? Like, do you think that he's up to par or performing, or do you think that they just put together a great recruiting class and just have great players that are sold on playing at Michigan?
I think he's a coach that they wanted, and I think he's done what they've expected to. But I think they may have expected it later on, maybe a year or two in, 3 years when he's has a couple of seasons under his belt and gets the coach like the same coaching realm under him. But I think he has probably surpassed expectations from Michigan since he's being there. He's part of the Fab Five and be able to play there. And he just knows the Michigan field, the Michigan atmosphere, and I think that's kind of helped him be able to coach these kids. And I think all the kids in the recruiting class they've bought into what he knows and what he's given to his coaching staff. I do know during the tournament, the Big Ten tournament, he was kicked out of the game for saying some things to another team, and their assistant coach came in and coached the rest of the game, and even then was able to help them win that game. So I think the mentality he brings and the coaching aspect of it, I think he put together a great program so far, and um, I think it's expected to rise and go up.
Um, I think that the next game they play, they have Florida State that they're playing. I think it's either on Saturday or Sunday. I think that's going to be like a tough matchup for them because Florida State is a really good team. They produce. They have. They're long. They're athletic. I think Michigan is going to be in trouble for that next game.
I think so too, and I mean every game in March Madness isn't guaranteed. You're gonna go in. It gets harder. The further you get into the tournament, the harder it's gonna get. It's not nothing's gonna come easy anymore. And I think they almost lost to LSU too, so it was very close, and they were able to get that one out. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see what they're gonna do next.
Yeah, I think one team I'm still not sold on is Gonzaga. Like I'm just waiting for them to fall at any given moment.
Yeah, I mean, they went in undefeated. I think uh, I don't think they're the first team to do that, but it's been a while since that's happened. So I don't that they have Creighton next. So I don't
Mm.
know. That
I
might be
I
a hard one for them.
I expect it to be Creighton, and then they'll have to play the winner of USC or Oregon, and I think that's a 6-7 matchup. I feel as though that Oregon. I mean, I feel as though that USC may pull that off,
Yeah,
and I don't know. So Gonzaga just may easily walk into the championship game, which is it just is possible.
right. And I think if Gonzaga wins their next game, just saying that Creighton doesn't show up, I think if they have to play either USC or Oregon, and let's say Oregon wins that, I think it might be hard for them because I know Oregon put up a 56 or some points in the first half against Iowa,
Hmm.
and I think Oregon's healthy now. They have their couple players. I think their one duo I was looking is like 56 or some points a game just between the two of them so far. So I think whoever is going to get Oregon next, USC, they're going to have to stop that. But I do see it's gonna get interesting. The one matchup I'm kind of looking forward to and seeing is watching Oral Roberts play again. I want to see what they can do after winning their first two games. I know they're the second team since 2000, I think 7, because it was Florida Gulf Coast that's made it this far in the tournament. So I'm kind of rooting for them. Want to see what they can do because they have played Arkansas. Arkansas was one of their non-conference games earlier in the season, and that's another story. People are getting on Arkansas about not um, playing these non-conference teams that are just like, oh, so why would you ever play these people? And the four teams that Arkansas did play in their non-conference games all won in the first round. So I think um, that's a testament to them for picking. Um, I guess maybe luck on picking these teams, but maybe their coach knew something that we didn't know.
So do you have Oral Roberts beating Arkansas?
I was looking at the matchup before that they played early in the season, and Arkansas did win that I think by 12 points. But I think it's been a while since then, so I think Oral Roberts might might win it.
Ooh, I'm
But
rocking with you on that, Brady.
but
Oh,
I think it's close though.
I think I'm more. I think I'm more. I like that upset.
Yeah, I think that game might get the most. Not gonna say it's like the most viewership, but I think that's gonna be a game that people are gonna tune into because they beat Ohio State. No one thinking they're gonna do that. They come in, they beat Florida. No one thinks they're gonna do that. So I think
They
they're
got
gonna
one
be.
more. They got one more left in them.
Yeah, I think it's like a couple years ago when was it Loyola Chicago beat Virginia, the number one seed. I think it's gonna be one of those. Everyone's gonna be watching to see what they can do.
Speaking of Ohio, Chicago, how far do you think they make it now that they got past Illinois?
Looks like they got Oregon State next. I mean,
Yeah,
I haven't seen much Oregon State basketball. I mean, they did beat Tennessee and Oklahoma State, but I don't know. I think they might have it if oh Sister Jean, she's gonna be there and watch it.
I think
I
so.
think that's a good luck. That's a good luck.
Don't bet against Sister Jean on Sunday.
Nah,
So if they gave us on a Sunday, Loyal is gonna win.
I think so. I think they have a great shot. I mean, the rest of their side of the bracket doesn't look. If they win that game, they either got Syracuse or Houston. So, um,
And I think they both beatable.
yeah, I mean any team we're looking at the bracket now as the first 2 days. I think any team is
Yeah,
beautiful now.
anything. Yeah,
Any
yeah.
team, but I think it's gonna be very interesting to see what we have going forward, and just to see even the revenue from the tournament is going to be interesting to see because I think they have 25% capacity. So just seeing what it is now and then seeing after with all these people
Hmm.
and watching and everything like that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree.
I do know, so I know just bring in Indiana as a betting state, so I do know a lot of people have been betting a lot of money on all these games. And I know people at home are probably thinking like, oh, they put $10 bets in, they're just losing money. But $10 is not a lot. You have people out there seeing $100,000. Someone put $100,000 on Ohio State winning it all, but then they lost. So it's like these people.
Yeah.
So
Are you
good.
into are you into sports betting at all?
I've been before. I've looked into it. I've gotten into it a little bit, but not as deep because I'm afraid of betting money. Because I always every time I get into it, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try it. Like $5 bet here. I'm like, it doesn't work out well. So it's like I don't tempt going in any further than.
I've been talking about it for years. I always talk it over with one of my friends, and I was like, "Look, dude, I kind of want to get into it, but it seems too complicated. I'd like to invest my money in things where I know whether I'm gonna get some type of return on it, or I like to,
Right.
there's some type of guarantee to it, or I get something materialized back from it. And for me to get into sports betting is difficult, but I kind of want to do it just for I guess, for the thrill of it. It gives me another reason to watch the game, and not that I need another reason because I love the sports as it the way it is, but sports gambling is changing a lot of things. When you look at your FanDuel, when you look at just all the different apps that's out there that allows betting to take place, and the monopolizing it and that is crazy.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because I also looked into it and done it a little bit, and it's nice to see. It's just it gives someone something else to do, and you can do with your friends and do little small bets here. But I think
Mhm.
um, to get fully into it, fully invested, you gotta know everything. You got it's part of it's skill, but it's a lot of almost like 24/7. You gotta get in it. It's almost like being in a Wall Street. You gotta know what you're doing. You gotta know where to put the money and how to put it, and it's just you gotta. It takes years of practice, I think.
I uh I just need someone that has just a good hit ratio on these picks just to be my mentor, and I'll be cool. I'll start off with like a little budget. Don't tell my wife, but I'll start off like like $10 a month. I'll bet that, let that grow.
Yeah,
If I win, I just cash out, and if I lose, then that's all my money for the month. So we'll
right.
see.
Yeah,
We'll
and
see.
I think one of the things I probably won't ever bet is March Madness. That's like it's one thing I'll probably always stay away from because I'm not. Maybe it's like if it's like let's say Super Bowl, 50-50 chance you win it, you lose it. It's fine. March Madness, you got so many more games and so many unpredictable things as we're
Yeah,
seeing that it's just impossible to know.
I totally agree with that, man. But going into the women's side of college basketball, what's been your thoughts and your picks and your feelings about how everything is going so far on a woman?
So I haven't been following much women's basketball this year. I've been here and there, been following it. I do know also back with Michigan. Michigan's women have been doing amazing, and they got a bunch of great players there. But I know there's a whole like controversy where I fully started investing myself in it. The tournament is just the way that the men and women had their tournament set up. And I think that's one thing that has brought a bunch of people's attention towards the women's side of the
Hmm.
tournament because of their facilities, the weightlifting stuff, and just the stuff they
Hmm.
even get on game days. I think that's bringing more buzz and hype to the women's tournament, which I don't think is bad. I think it's great to get it out there, and I'm sure this has happened for years, but now it's more in the limelight. I think with
Hmm.
everyone wants to watch it, but back to like the picks and stuff, I think Michigan's pretty well, but I think going back with this UConn and Stanford just always being the powerhouse, and you got South Carolina just always being up there. That I think it's gonna be one of them again. I kind of want to go with UConn just because in the past they've had solid teams towards the tournament run. So
Yeah, I like, to kind of echo your point about how the women's tournament started off with not just having the same type of equipment, the same setup that the men were fortunate enough to have. It sucks, and it sucks that it's here we are in 2021, and the women still have to deal and put up with the shenanigans as such as this. Um, and as you mentioned, I don't, who knows how long this really been going on, because
Yeah.
I'm sure athletes have plenty to say about how the NCAA have treated men compared to how it's treated women. And like I said, it just sucks. It sucks a lot.
Yeah.
I could probably keep talking about how bad and how just unfortunate it is, and I'm glad that it was addressed. Sort of like they made a step in the right direction. They kind of added some equipment, but I want to know who was responsible for dropping that ball. They just who was the person that decided to say, hey, this little, weight, 10-pound weight that, that I get from our crib. Oh yeah, we can just put this in down there, and that would be good enough for them. I don't know. I just want to know who's responsible for making that decision.
Right, right. It's so bad. And I didn't even. I would never have thought to think that this even happens because I know going to tech, like we have all the facilities, everything, everyone shares the same thing. So I'm like, okay, this is probably what most schools are. But looking at this, I'm like,
Hmm.
well, is that even the same thing at other colleges now? Like, are they?
Yep.
I know like all these big like Power Five schools have all these big weight programs and weight rooms with their football, basketball team. And I was like, is that even the same now, even on college campuses? And I just think it draws more attention to this even more. Now it's national news. Everyone's seeing it. And
Hmm.
I mean, you would have thought your first thing is like, okay, everyone should get the same thing. But then you're gonna have people who go and say like, oh well, the men drive in more revenue than the women's sports, so like, oh well, that's where it's gonna draw into. But it's like, if you're really looking at it, the men might have more revenue, but the women are coming on the rise now. Like they're everybody is tuning in to women's sports, and women's sports are becoming more powerful, and that's all I see on like Twitter and Instagram and everything. That the women's sports is just it's up and coming, and it's I think that it's good for them, and I think that they should have the same facilities regardless of gender at this point. It's like everyone needs to be on the same playing field.
Yeah, and I think it shouldn't come down to, oh, they got they bring in more revenue. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Like they need the same resources that the men have. Point
yeah.
blank, point blank, period. And like I said,
It's the same game. Same
it's the
game.
same game,
Basketball. Yeah,
same
it's
game.
basketball. Yep. It's basketball. It's all basketball. And then I know people listening are like, oh well, we don't agree with what you guys are saying, but it's like it's you have so many sides of the argument that it's just hard to pinpoint. But it's just in all fairness, everyone just needs to have the same facilities, same everything, and that's all I have on that. Just everything needs to be point blank, one line drawn. I think moving forward with instability, I think they're going to look more into it. They're going to be like, okay, so as you were saying, who dropped the ball? So what are they going to do next year? And people are going to be looking into that. They're going to be more scrutinized of the instability, and they're going to be like, okay, so you did it now. They put more weights and they did more stuff after the fact. That is, but it's like people are looking like you should do that before it even has to go do social media. People to have backlash.
Yeah, they should definitely be ashamed of themselves. But on top of that, I want to know if, or like whoever, and I have to do my research later, but whoever's on or whoever's in control of doing or handling the women's side, if there's women in place there that handles those decisions, they should be even more ashamed of what happened because they allowed this to happen.
Yeah,
And I think that those women in those positions need to do a better job of protecting these women college athletes and making sure they get the same treatment as the men would, if not even better treatment. So,
Yeah, that's definitely a huge topic that is gonna be talked for a while.
mm-hmm.
It's it's never gonna go away. It's always gonna be there, and I think moving forward, I think they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna realize like what they're doing. Even the venues that they have to play in, like they're playing out of small schools. They're playing out of just like I'm
Yeah.
thinking of. I'm trying to think. I can't think of the name, but like even like how the Madness play out of the Coliseum. They're playing out little things like that where it's like no fans, and you got the NCAA. They're playing out of huge colleges. They're playing out of Bankers Life and bigger areas, and they're just kind of little showrooms almost where they can. And that's what I see. And that I was looking into it. The men 25% capacity. The women they only get like 36 fans or something like that. Not that many. They actually have specified like 4 or 5 tickets per member, which they have very small numbers.
And I'm not sure if that has to do with anything with how COVID is being handled down in Texas, um, but still, that does stink. I think even the media coverage for the game, I think I heard or saw something on Twitter where, only specified media members are allowed, or a certain number of the media people is there. That's why there's maybe so much more coverage for the men that there are the women. Again, that's also trash, and it should definitely be adjusted. I think that the women needs just as much as attention as the men does.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think, I mean, you even put in these things like I'm looking here on the schedule, like they're on ESPN2, ESPNU, and some people don't even have like ESPNU, ESPN2. It's people that just have ESPN like through their broadcasting or whatever TV provider they have, and I think um, they need to have more airtime for it. Like as the men, they had the first day. I think the first game started at like 10 in the morning. Last game ended at 9, and they had a full slate of nationally televised games throughout the whole day, and I think that's what we need to have for our women on the days that the men aren't playing, um, and other things like that. I don't think the men are playing today. They might. Um,
There's not playing today. Today as we're recording of March 23rd, but
yeah, and I'm looking. The women have a whole lineup today with I think 10 games going on. And tomorrow, the 24th, they have games going on. So it's weird to see even like the TV national like the TV schedule for them that they're not on, say CBS, True TV, and ESPN that the men are on.
I would have loved if they had alternated. Like, all right, today is all the men's games, for much as they can't get in for the day, and then here's the day for the women's, just so each of them can kind of get their own respectful shine.
Yeah, that would be. I think they should do that going forward because it gives full week of basketball. You have every other day, men and
Mm.
women, to go on. I do know one of other games that is going on tomorrow. We have one of our own client or interns in the tournament. Sydney Wood playing tomorrow. Looks like they're playing Louisville.
They're playing Louisville tomorrow, so I think that's gonna be a good matchup. I like women like so the women game, right? There's a lot more less upsets. There's still a couple of upsets. This is going over the bracket, right? There's a couple of upsets that's out there, but it's not as many as the men. And I think that's just mainly because these programs that have these established coaches, established routines, I think there are in a better foundation than some of the other programs that's out there. Now, as the women's game begin to increase, as we've seen the rise, it'd be nice to, like, 10 years from now or even 5 years from now, I think you will begin to see more and more upsets, and you'll start to see I don't say the fall, but the breakage of some of these dynasty programs like the Yukon and the South Carolinas and stuff like that. I think you start seeing them, when every now and then versus expecting them to always be in the Final Four every year.
Right, and that's what even you're saying that looking at that too, there isn't that many. And I think that's where you're saying it comes to these women program. Everyone wants to go to UConn. Everyone wants to go to Stanford. And I think in the men's situation, I don't think people are kind of leaning away towards going to your bigger schools because they see opportunity going somewhere else, whether it be playing minutes or just the atmosphere. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where March Madness even brings it around. Where I know a couple years ago, I think it was when BYU. I guess BYU was one of the schools. Like they had no like national televised anything, and then all of a sudden they were making a run in the tournament, and their academics went up. Like everyone started applying at a school, looking at a school, and I think that's where, for some of these men's teams, is where they get their athletes from. People are watching the tournament, and then people are like, oh, what's this Oral Roberts University? I never heard of them. They go look it up, and then you're gonna have more people going to that school just because of this time. And I
Mm-hmm.
think with the women, you don't see that as much because you only have these set schools that are still pretty dominant in it. And that's where everyone wants to go, and it's, I guess, not harder for these other schools to recruit and get them, but they're not getting as much time on TV as the men are.
Yeah, I think I want to do a comparison one day when I get a chance. I want to do some analytics behind the women's game. I would like to take, the amount of money or maybe even the coach's salary and, see and rank that across like the tournament just to see, coach's salary, right? As an indication of how much is being invested into those particular programs compared to all the other schools, and that can also show or tell a lot of things because the higher paid coaches are probably the ones that are winning more and probably have the better type of program compared to the other schools.
Right. I think that also and it takes a factor in like the revenue side too, because they're gonna bring always money is always involved within this, and that's where people are gonna always go between even the men and the women, whatever sport you're looking at. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Coaches get paid more, so they have more money to spend on their team. In a sense, more recruiting money, and that's even with like the donors of schools, where donors will donate back to their school, and that's where their money is coming from with the facility upgrades and the amount of money they can get for scholarships. So I think um, that also plays a big factor into that too.
Yeah. Like in women's basketball, right now currently you still have all the one seeds are still currently there, which are your Stanford, your UConn, your South Carolina, and your NC State. Now, I'm not historically knowledgeable when it comes to the the college basketball for the women, but I feel as though like the NC State being the number one seed is not something that naturally happens every year.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you if I wish I could agree or disagree with that, but I also am not 100% positive. I do know one of it's like UConn and Stanford always up there, but it's I think it's more in the women's sense. It's or for women's basketball, you almost get a sense of who your top one, two, three, four seeds are going to be, and then the men come in, you don't know what's going to happen because anything can happen. You might have a generalized state of who might be it, but I think as a women's side, you almost know for a sense going into the season of who, or a couple games in, you might know who's going to be what seed.
Yeah. Um have out of the games, were you able to catch any of the games for the women's and watch them? If so, was there anybody in particular that impressed you so far, or any team that has?
I believe I watched one. I can't. I think it was a Rutgers. I think Rutgers BYU game. I know that one. I think BYU won. Yeah, 69-66. I think it's one of the ones that I catch a glimpse of. Watching it just the beginning opening. I think opening 5-10 minutes of it,
Mm-hmm.
and even just watching it, they're playing. I think they're playing at Texas State and a smaller school down there. And I think even watching that, like they don't have the facility. It doesn't look like they have as much facilities as them, so it's like they're playing in smaller colleges like that. And I think that also affects into how the games are played, probably, and everything like that. And maybe the outcomes, but
Yeah. I like the one of my favorite things to do for the women's is I like watching their bigs play. This is because they're so fundamentally sound, their footwork game is effortless and it's top notch to watch. And with that being said, I'm looking forward to seeing this Texas UCLA matchup. Just because of the girl that's at Texas, her name is Charlie um, Collier. I think I probably butchered the mess out of her name, but I think um, I think that's gonna be an interesting matchup to watch. That's a 6-3 matchup, so I think that takes place on the 24th. So some of these next tier round of games, you got your 5-4, your 6-3. There's a couple 6-3, 5-4, 6-3s, and 7-2s. It's crazy because pretty much a lot of the brackets kind of went, I don't say as expected. I think the one major upset that you see or saw was the Belmont over Gonzaga in the opening round. That's that 5-12 matchup. Belmont pulled out and win by 5. Now they play against IU on the 24th. So I think that's also going to be an interesting matchup just to see if that Cinderella story could continue for Belmont over Indiana. Other teams I like Louisville, I like Dana Evans out from Gary. The Michigan program is also pretty stacked as you mentioned. It's going to be hard to see them play against Tennessee, another one of those historical great programs, just to see what's going on.
right.
Um, Baylor as well. They play against Virginia Tech, uh, but I think Baylor is going to advance. The 5-4 matchup between Kentucky and Iowa, I think you're going to see Kentucky that's going to pull that off as long as they continue to play decently. Um, so yeah, I think it's a lot of great matchups. There's a lot of great, athletes and programs are still out there. Even Oregon, a 6-3 matchup over Georgia. I'm definitely picking Oregon over in that matchup just because of like I'm gonna go with the historical presence of 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 women's basketball just because of how much they means. I think they have. I think the girl name is Sydney Parrish. She's another person that's from Indiana that's also playing on that Oregon team. Another great player. So it's I think it's exciting times for the women. It's the right time. It's always the right time to be a woman, but just to be a part of the women's game now and to help it continue to push. You're looking at future stars that are playing in these college basketball games. That's going to be the future face of the WNBA.
And I think that's a huge thing too. I mean, I'd go with the pick two with Oregon winning, and as you're saying, with them being the future of the WNBA, they're also young and they all know um, the world of social media and what's going on now, and the fact that they can help bring more light to everything. And I know, like with Sabrina Ionescu when she was drafted last year in the WNBA draft, and all the hype and stuff around her and what she brought to the game, I think um, that's good for the WNBA and for women's basketball, and for the younger generation now growing up with all the girls trying to be there and wanting to be like the guys and playing like that. Another thing that I was bringing in is like all the Big Ten teams right now on the women's side that are dominating within the tournament. You got IU, Northwestern, Maryland, Michigan, teams like that. It's just even more than men. They're lasting longer. They can have better teams, better programs, and they don't have made upsets, and they're solidified talent that is always gonna perform when they need to perform.
Yeah, I think overall the general the big like you mentioned the Big Ten in women's basketball is tough. Like even the teams that are that were banged up or injured are still competitive and can still beat a good team on a good if you catch them slipping on a bad day. So the Big Ten, as a great point that you mentioned, the Big Ten and women's basketball played some phenomenal ballers here, and they're showing out in this tournament.
Yeah, that's what I like about the Big Ten. Not that it's called a Michigan fan or anything like that. I just know they got they got some great basketball going on up there, and uh, people wouldn't expect. I mean, it's one of the greater schools, but um, I know the men and the women for Michigan were doing well all season long, but I think both at one point were the only two schools in all of women and men basketball that were undefeated at a certain point. There were only two schools that were doing that, so I think that just shows the program that Michigan has going on up there. And not to discredit any other school right now in the tournament, but I think both of them, for me at least, watching them go far. I think they have the chance to do that.
The thing that's also crazy to me about the WNBA, I mean, I'm sorry, not the WNBA, but the college women's basketball is the fact that pretty much once they're done playing, right? They're done playing their final game. Your juniors and seniors have to turn around and get ready for the WNBA draft, which is like 14 days, which is slated for April 15th of this year. And that's such a crazy turnaround. So that means they get drafted, they turn around. This is probably another take for another day. But the fact that they have to turn around and get prepared for the WNBA draft, be drafted, and then now start preparing to play against to play on the professional level within a couple of months, which that turnaround is crazy just because they was just playing on TV in a national tournament, versus the college game, the college men for the men, they would go in this tournament, but their draft is until till July and then or June, and then you still have a whole summer to get prepared. And I think just that time gap is crazy. I think I also give this kudos to women athletes that have to make that journey. And I think that maybe the part of the reason why, sometimes you see just a lot of those injuries for the women is just because there's so much basketball all at once. And I think they need a little bit more time between somewhere somehow just to break up the gap. But I think that's hard to manufacture just because of the fact that a lot of women still goes overseas to play games.
Yeah, that is, yeah, definitely. I didn't realize that how fast a turnaround it was for the women, and that's a lot of stress that's added on
Mm-hmm.
to them because those players who are in the tournament right now, knowing they're going to go in the draft, knowing they're going to be, say, top 10 pick, first round pick, whatever, knowing that they have the potential, and then they got to worry. First, they got to focus on, and they're in school too, so they got to focus on their academics, and then they got to worry about competing in the tournament, and then within a 2 week time period have to already be in top shape to go to the WNBA draft and then go right in and start a season. So I think that's, as you're saying, kudos to them for just being able to handle it all at one time and be able to just go about and do it.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of these matchups. I feel like me and you should do a bracket of where it currently stands right now. Just erase what happened the past couple of days. It didn't exist. Going forward, let's do a bracket and see how our predictions come out.
Yeah, we can definitely do that and then come back, talk about it and
Yeah.
see what we got at the end of this tournament.
Please make sure you follow us and like us and subscribe on all social medias. Follow us on Twitter at CTG _podcast or just any social media site. Just type in capturing the game and just follow us, like us, tweet at us, share our page, share our tweets, and we look forward to meeting our audience. You could definitely also email us at capturing the game pod at gmail.com. And we'll get back to you with a response. So fill out your brackets. Hopefully your brackets will do it better than ours. But thank you for joining us on this episode. Peace.